Hi, welcome back to the Kindling Dating channel. I'm Eimear, your straight talking dating coach, and today I am chatting with Danielle. Danielle is a women's empowerment coach, and she is very productivity, and particularly around how our hormone cycles impact our productivity and how we can work with them rather than just trying to ignore them, which is what I do, to be honest. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Should we kick off with what is hormone cycle optimization? Because I already heard about it when we started chatting.
Yeah, it sounds very fancy, doesn't it? But it's really about using the fluctuations that come from our hormone cycles as a way to achieve stuff, a way to, to be more positive, which sounds, I guess, completely imaginable for some people. A lot of us just go along obliviously with our cycles, having no awareness of what they're really doing. But it's so much more than just things like PMT and cramps. It's, our brain, tell you a stat here, your brain can change by up to 25% throughout a single month, throughout a single cycle. So it's more than just like how we're feeling physically in our tummy, and sometimes other things, but it's more than that. It's literally your brain is different. So how you are coming into the world every single day is very, very different. And it's something we massively overlook. So I'm really supportive of women who are trying to use that, switch their mindset, switch their physical experience, and actually use it to their advantage instead of it just being something that happens to us every single month.
Yeah, it's so funny because I don't get like period cramps or anything. So generally I'm just like, oh yeah, it comes and goes, it doesn't matter. But since talking to you, I've been a bit more in tune to it. And the other week I had Mondays I spent with the girls and I had this weird altercation over a breadstick in a playground. And for some reason I couldn't shake it off. And then Tuesday I had this really packed day. I had like a networking thing and I just felt rubbish. And I just couldn't stop crying most of the morning. And I was like, I need to pick myself up. What is wrong with me? And it was probably something to do with where I was within my cycle. And I was just like, I need to get more in tune with this.
Honestly, Ema, as a business owner, it's so important because it can really impact, how you're parenting and how you're running your business as well. And if you can just start tracking to see where you are at with your cycle and then start to see those things coming through regularly, you'll know, let's not plan a networking day on that day because I don't want to be sitting there in tears.
Luckily, it is a women's networking event, so everyone was very supportive.
Oh, that's okay then, yeah.
But I know you tend to talk about your hormone cycle as your superpower. So can we direct it to achieve things that we want?
100%. I think, and giving you the chance to know yourself better is the first piece, because like I said, and you've said, you just plod along and suddenly something happens and you have no understanding as to why. And sometimes we can actually magnify that into something a lot bigger. We're thinking, there's something more going on and we start reading into it more. But once you have an understanding, it's actually your hormones and it's something that's happening normally, then you have this awareness and understanding of it, and it allows you to accept it in a different way. But you just generally will feel more confident because you have that awareness and you're able to just step up when you've got that energy and you're firing up because you're probably around ovulation. But even when you're not and you've got your period, you do just feel more confident because you have that acceptance, you have that understanding, and it gives you this power. It's empowering, basically. And having that awareness of those certain behaviors, you just see them come and you accept them, and then you move on and you focus on what can you do. And you do have different powers throughout each of the phases of the cycle. And when I talk about phases, if anyone's really not familiar with that, you've got one cycle is around 28-ish days. Everyone's slightly different. And through that, you've got 4 different phases. I won't go into the detail of it too much, but you can be very, very different throughout each of those 4 phases. And so, trying to get that understanding and awareness is so, so empowering. When you have your period is the phase we all know. That's the one where I'll start with because it's easy. And actually, I'll talk about it as seasons because if I tell you the science names, they'll go in one ear and out the other. So let's think about it as seasons. And actually, there is a real similar pattern with sort of how you're feeling in those seasons of the year versus how you're feeling when you've got your period and the other phases as well. So with your period, we're talking about roughly 3 to 7 days. And this is, by no surprise, what we're called winter. So if you think about winter when it's cold and you want to just wrap up cozy and sit in front of the TV and eat crappy food, right? That's basically how you feel. Yeah. So at this time, you might be a bit more easily irritated and I mean, we can talk about this actually in the dating world as well. It's pretty obvious as to how you can see things aligning. But that's your winter is when you've got your period. Then you go into spring, and this is around 7 to 10 days. This is the time going from your period to when you actually ovulate. Mm-hmm. Ovulation is when the egg is released, ready for fertilization. Okay, so during that time your estrogen levels are rising, and that means your energy is rising. So in spring, you start to feel a bit more positive, don't you? When the sun starts shining, it's a bit more motivating. So that's how you're probably likely to feel. As that energy rises, you're just able to focus more on different tasks that you couldn't maybe when you had your period. And creativity is actually your strength at this time. You're probably going to see, you'll track into this now, you feel more creative. You've got loads of ideas of different things that you can do, and that's a great time to focus in on that. Then we go into summer when you ovulate. This is only, unfortunately, a bit like British summer, around 3 to 4 days. So that's when typical, isn't it? That's that time when you're ovulating. And if you think about it from a sort of evolution perspective, this is when your body is saying, I'm ready to mate. I'm ready to have some fun with someone. This is when you're going to feel definitely more confident and more capable and want to attract people. So you kind of have that glow about you naturally without you even really trying. And for dating, again, really important. So ovulation. So we go into autumn, and this goes right the way through to back when you have your period. So around 10 to 14-ish days, everyone is slightly different. Your energy is going to go the opposite way. It's going to dip down. You're going to probably sort of want to be more introverted at this time. Even if you're an extrovert person, you'll still probably feel slightly more inward, wanting to focus on yourself a bit more, not necessarily wanting to put yourself out there so much. And your energy kind of dips, and then you go all the way back around. And if people do struggle with PMT, then they're going to experience it at this time. So the last probably few days to a week before your period actually comes is when you get probably some cramps, some heightened irritability, anger, experiences all of this differently. So that just gives you a quick example and a very quick run through of the 4 phases.
Yeah, as you touched on, this definitely must, because I'm guessing if you're meeting somebody in autumn, you're like...
It's very, very interesting, actually. And since we've had our last conversation, I've been really looking into it more because I'm finding it quite fascinating and thinking all these different things that impacts you. But I've never even thought about this before, actually, in my whole dating experience. So if we think about winter, obviously you've got your period. This can be really horrible for a lot of people. Some people might find controversial, but period pain is not something that's normal. And a lot of the time we grow up just thinking it is. So we just get on with it, but it's not. So if you are having period pain, and I'm talking about debilitating, like, yes, a little bit of cramping is pretty normal, but to have something that is literally flooring you for a week is not normal. So be your doctor, go and see your GP, and also look at your lifestyle and come to me. I can help you with trying to balance your hormones. You don't have those horrible experiences. If you are having your period, you are just going to feel still more introverted. It's not like you want to go out and have a date, right? So I would say if you're looking to arrange dates and you are tracking and know when your period is coming, probably try and avoid it, especially a first date. Try and avoid it, because you're not going to show up as your best version of you to impress someone else, but equally you're probably going to be quite critical of somebody else. So you may be looking for things that another time you wouldn't even notice. And then as you go through that period and into then that spring phase, as the energy starts to rise, you are going to feel a little bit more like you want to see people, and you actually want to have interaction, and you want to kind of feel that, how can I describe it? Like the touch of somebody, like to have a cuddle with someone is actually a really nice thing at that time. Whereas when your period, you might not have wanted that at all. But as your energy is rising, you'll want that. So if you think about going on a date, things like something a bit more active, a bit more social, maybe even like double dating or something like that, you'll probably feel a little bit more up for that kind of thing. So that week after your period, if you're booking in dates for then, I would definitely look at something a bit more active, because you're just going to enjoy it so much more. And you're going to just show up as, the best version of you, because that's what your body and your brain is really up for at that time. As I said before, this is a creativity phase. This is actually a really good time to sit down and look at your profile and kind of think, what is it that I want from a relationship? What do I want from a man or a woman, I guess? But we're talking specifically about hormones. So for you as a woman, this is a good time to think outside the box. What is it that I'm really looking for? be creative, use that energy that you have. And also worth mentioning, your libido is going to be increasing gradually. So as you get to that ovulation phase, it's at its highest level. But throughout this time, your libido will be increasing. So when you think about if you're swiping on any particular apps, then you might be starting to look at people from a more sexual perspective, as opposed to looking for someone when you read it and think they're a good mate for me. It's quite different, isn't it? When you're looking with that sexual energy versus the more companion energy. So as we go into ovulation, then you're just basically very horny. Let's just put it like that, okay? So if you are swiping and you're doing this when you're ovulating, be mindful. If you can track your cycle and you know this, be mindful, because you may not be looking for someone who's a sexual partner that's a one-off thing. You might be looking for that more long-term relationship. So you are going to probably swipe for people and maybe go on dates with people that attract you sexually, and great, but are they a long-term companion? Maybe not. So if you can have that awareness and know, actually, maybe go on a first date, have some fun, by all means do that, but then go on a second date with them when you're not in that ovulation phase. When you're in your luteal phase, go on your second date. I said a science word, I'm sorry. When you're in your autumn phase, go on a second date with them then, and then you get that balanced view of, actually, do I really like them for a long term? Because it's good to have both, right? It's good to have the sexual chemistry as well as the long-term companion kind of relationship. So if you can get that holistic view, then amazing.
I think that's really nice, actually, the idea of like your energy is up, your libido is up, you're going to be feeling like a little bit frisky, and you probably will take a chance on somebody, but actually just come back and see them again when you're in a calmer space. That's really nice, because often we would, I think with dating generally now, we just get way too in our heads. So you would go, oh, I've just swiped for him because I'm feeling a bit horny, so I won't go on a date with him. And it's like, well, no, give it a chance, and then just give it another chance when you're a bit more settled. I don't know what the word is. Calm.
And well, actually, when it's that autumn phase, you're quite analytical. Your brain is working quite analytically, and you're able to kind of, if you were focusing on work, you'd be sitting and doing sort of deep reports and looking at things like that. So you will be thinking quite differently. So if you can then look at somebody with that different lens, you're looking at them quite holistically. But equally, if you think about it from the other perspective, so if men are listening, they get to see you in your different lights, because you don't want them just to see one version of you, and then you start dating more, permanently, and suddenly one day you wake up and you're a very different person and they don't understand why. So it's hard for the guys to really understand you. So if you can see them at different phases, it allows them to see the different versions of you as well.
And also not being afraid to let those different versions out, because I think, again, with dating, quite often there's a little bit of guardedness, there's a little bit of like, oh, I must be the fun time, or it must be whatever you've portrayed yourself as initially. And it's fine to accept that actually we're not that all the time. Let it ebb and flow and see how they react. And
absolutely,
because that's what you need in a long-term relationship. They need to be a partner.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I know, I guess for your first date, maybe go for those more confident times, because you don't want to be going to a date where you're just feeling horrendous and your self-doubt is up here and, you feel awful, and you want to have good conversation, right? You don't want it to be awkward and you just think, I can't be bothered to be here. So maybe the first date, yes, but then definitely look at those second, third, fourth, however long you go on, try and get that overall version of you to show up at different times. Communication is really important, isn't it? So maybe, if you're looking at the type of dates you're going on, I did say about the energetic phases where you're going to want to go and do active stuff, maybe more social stuff. In that autumn phase, you're going to be wanting to probably maybe go and not even go anywhere, stay at home and have a movie night and get cuddly, because that's another thing you could probably want. And it's quite nice to do that. And I think it's about seeing how compatible you are in those different environments as well, isn't it? Because you could find somebody just won't sit still and watch a movie. They might find that really hard. And for them to understand that's what you need right now, but it doesn't mean you're like that forever. It's understanding that there's different times where I need different things. And if they can't work with you in that sense, then you're going to know there's something not quite right here. We're not going to match up. But equally, on the flip side, more positive side, you may have someone that totally gets that. And actually, as men, even though they don't have the same hormone cycle as us, they may still enjoy the variety of different types of dates. So, finding someone that can match that energy that you have at different times is just, it's winner, winner, chicken dinner.
As you were talking, I was thinking, so there's loads of dating trends that you'll always hear. there'll always be articles about them or whatever. And a lot of them I'm like, oh, yeah, you can take a bit out of it. It's just more noise around dating. But I was like, actually, you could kind of align quite easily to some of the dating trends. So one of them is date stacking, which is you do like 2-3 dates on the same day. And you could totally do that in springtime when you're like full of energy and you're like, yeah, I'm buzzing, and be a bit efficient and see which ones of the three you want to take forward. And then autumn time, they always talk about cuffing season, which is this idea of finding a short-term relationship just to pass the winter months. But again, not quite like taking it that it's short term, but like just taking for that period of your month, that autumn phase, that you just want somebody to cuddle with. And that's fine. And it's like, you don't, if you choose to do date stacking and go on loads of crazy dates, it's like, well, let's just do that for 10 days of the month. And then hopefully one of them is go around for the cuddly stage in autumn. That's really
I love that. I
cool,
think
actually.
That works really well, doesn't it? Yeah.
And yeah, like I love it as well. Like you were just saying, it's kind of okay not to be tolerant during your period stage, your winter stage, because I think a lot of us are like, oh, I should be more happy, blah, blah, blah. But it is like a big thing that's going on in your body, isn't it?
Yeah, like I said at the start, it's so much more than it's your body, your brain, everything is very, very different. And the more you can track and tap into that and understand yourself, you are in the best position to educate somebody on you, right?
Yeah.
So, you're able to, once you start dating somebody a bit more, you have those open conversations and you can explain to them, well, look, this is how I am. And I have these different phases where you might see me going bonkers and wanting to go out dancing with everyone. But versus I might also then a week or two later be like this. And the more you can have those conversations early, you're building the foundation blocks for a really great, solid relationship. And me and my partner, obviously, he's sick to death of me talking about periods because I do that every single day. But we now have a really good understanding. And he's great. He's able to say, this is happening. I know, and I'm here when we do this and we'll do it. He's very good, being able to understand it because we've had these conversations and we've had them quite early on as well.
Yeah. So what is it that men should be learning or trying to understand more so that they can be a partner in this rather than an innocent bystander?
It's hard. It is hard. It's not easy. And I have to say, if I had £1 for every time I speak to women and they say, my husband needs to know this or my partner needs to know this, because I think men don't get educated on this stuff, really. They get educated in the same way that women do on the science, but actually to have a really good understanding of what that really means practically is a whole nother level, and stuff that I love to work with guys as well to really help educate them and empower them to be able to support women better and just to have better relationships. It could be to, a colleague, it could be children, it's so many things. So what do they need to know? Well, I think if they can get an understanding of these 4 phases, to know that women are physically designed to be different every single day. They are not going to be the same person every day. And first, having that understanding is really important. To be able to get an understanding of, I guess, let's go to early dating stages. Yeah, you might find you turn up and somebody is not quite what you imagined. And I would say maybe then, again, try dating them a week or 2 later and see, are they still the same person? And if you don't like them, you don't like them. But give it a chance, because you may find that actually it wasn't their best day. They weren't aware of their cycle. They showed up when they shouldn't have done. And maybe they didn't kind of come to you with their best. So maybe give it a try. I guess if you know, but just be open to that.
I generally advise, like, if you can, like, there will be a date where you're like, oh God, I can't bear another minute in this person's company. But if you can, give them 2 or 3 dates, because quite often, like, never mind what's going on with your hormones, like, oh, you're nervous or distracted by something, and don't show up as your true self on the first date.
100%. I've gone home and thought I was really rubbish on that day. That just wasn't great for me. So yeah, totally support that. So that makes sense then. Exactly that. Go on a couple of dates with them, and try not to time it once every month, because obviously you may then end up with them being in the same phase again. So if you can do it maybe a week or 2 later, it can be very different potentially. What else do men need to know? So I think then once you start dating, again, just having those listening skills to understand, and it might not be necessarily a verbal word. It could just be, I say listening, like, with all your senses, really, just having that awareness. What is it a woman is trying to signal to you? Is she saying, can we watch a movie tonight? That might signal to you, okay, she's feeling like she wants to be a bit more at home, a bit more cozy, a bit more comfortable. Let's maybe have a bit more cuddles. I'm going to keep her safe and, make her feel in that safe space. And that can be really powerful. But on the flip side, you might have someone who's really doesn't want to be connecting physically with you. So reading those signs, and it can be hard. I know, I'm not going to say this is easy, but the more you're aware of, could it be this and could it be that, and having a little bit of understanding of it and trying to match. I guess you must talk about love languages all the time, right? And I'm no expert, but sort of matching that love language, I think, can be a really good way of supporting them.
Yeah, just matching the energy, isn't it?
The energy, exactly.
Giving you I just want to be home and cozy energy.
Yeah. But I'm very conscious that obviously I'm not going to say to men they have to always match the energy of women because, women are leading this relationship. That's not how it works at all, right? But it's just in terms of when you're meeting somebody and you're getting to know them, once you get through, I guess, a certain point, you start to sort of have your own presence in that relationship, and then you can have those communications as to how much can you flex that energy between you as a couple. But I think in those early days it's really important.
It's funny because when you think of dating, there's like all these little awkward conversations that you have to get through. Like the first date, it's like who's paying, and then it gets a bit further on and it's like, are we exclusive, if you met online, are we deleting the app? And now it's also like, let's talk about how my hormone cycle works and what you can expect at different points of the month as well.
Some women aren't yet comfortable having those conversations themselves. I mean, I do encourage conversation as much as you can about that. And that's part of the work that I do, is empowering people to feel comfortable talking about it. And what I often see is in the men that I work with who have had sisters growing up, they're much more open to talking about it versus ones that have no women in their lives that they've had those conversations with. So it's maybe difficult for both the man and the woman in this kind of relationship here to have those conversations. But I think fundamentally, if you can be a little bit vulnerable, both sides, and open yourself up to that, like I said earlier, these foundation blocks for a really good, strong relationship can be really, really critical. So maybe just stepping into that vulnerability a little bit can really, really help you to build that good relationship.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm hoping we're past the stage where it's like, oh, she's on her time of the month. Hoping nobody ever utters that ever again.
Yeah, it's not ideal to hear that. And as a woman who has a period, to hear that, any men listening, just don't go there, because it's like a trigger that's going to light a fire, and it's not going to go down well. So
usually my response to that is like, yeah, I'll tell you exactly what I'm going through right now. And I'd say it's less open communication and a little bit more open aggression.
Yeah. Yeah, choose the open communication before we get to the aggression phase.
Oh, so we should probably time that as well into our spring stage, or maybe autumn, but definitely not winter, right?
Definitely not. And autumn is a gradual decline in your energy and your patience, let's say. So as you get nearer to your period, often it is then, and everyone is slightly different, but a few days, maybe a week, where you then heighten those fiery energies, should we say. So everyone is slightly different, but it's not like you wake up in autumn and suddenly you're a bit more aggressive. It is just a gradual thing that will decline. Yeah.
And do you mind me asking you how you met your partner?
Oh, yes. So we were on Tinder. So I should maybe just give you I'm not going to go down my relationships. I've had a lot of relationships. I've been married twice. Obviously, it didn't work out for me. And I got to, what age? I guess approaching 40, let's say, where I was single. Work became my life because of, how my last marriage ended was not ideal. And I focused everything on work. That was how I coped, basically. I then went on to Tinder and I had some horrendous dates. A number of people. I did also equally have some nice dates. But, when I saw the picture of Dean, my other half now, I had this thinking of, I know I'm going to be with him. Like there was something about his picture that just spoke to me.
Yeah.
And we connected. I mean, what are we now? I guess 3 years in, something like that. I don't count anymore. I guess that's a good sign, isn't it, when you don't really count? We're 3 years in. We met on Tinder. It was actually coming to the end of COVID, the pandemic, lockdown phase. So we spoke for a bit online, then we eventually went and met. We walked for a very long time, where we went walking down the seafront, and we had some really open conversations on that first day, because I'd got to that point where I dated so much and I felt like I knew he was a good one. And I just thought, I'm putting everything on the table here. And if you don't like it, then I'm not going to waste any more of my time. I kind of got to that phase. I think being older and having the experiences that I'd had, I just wasn't up for wasting time. It was like, this is me. If you don't like it, then off you go. And I think that confidence came with time as well, having that assertiveness in myself to say, this is me. So yeah, he did exactly the same thing. He told me quite a lot of stuff about his past, and I couldn't believe actually the stuff that we shared with each other, but we both said, okay, and what, nothing mattered. Nothing made us think, red flags. It was all just, okay, I accept you as you are. And that was it, really. The rest is history. We dated, and we actually moved quite quickly in terms of our relationship progressing. We moved in together very quickly. How long have we got? But it was quite a funny story, really, because we were both in situations where we had sold houses and were moving to new houses, but we were in between the two, and we were both living with our parents.
Okay.
And actually, if that hadn't have happened, he wouldn't have been in the area because he was living in a different county. So we wouldn't have actually ever probably connected. It was this really strange fate of events that were happening where we were both in that situation. And we had a conversation quite early on where it was, where we're both buying houses now in different counties. Is that really what we want to do? Because actually we both something really good and going somewhere. So he actually decided not to buy his house and he moved in with me, and it did move very quickly. We then had a daughter very quickly as well, probably I guess not even a year later. So yes, it all happened very quickly, but I have to say very happy a couple of years in, and feels like we've been together forever, if I'm honest.
Those good foundations, I guess, that probably was able to accelerate things. And there was two things that you said that really struck me. One, a walking date. I love a walking date, because I just think when you get into this like across the table interview style, it's just a bit stilted. Whereas walking, you're just so much more open to talking. And yeah, I think there is actually science behind it. But a good space to have conversations is.
I'm not surprised, because you don't have that. You're not forced to have eye contact, are you? You're just looking ahead. You got some nice fresh air, people around you, and there was just no awkward silences, to be honest, because you're just focusing on plodding along and just having the conversation. It was just so much easier. I definitely recommend that.
Yeah. And then the second thing was about having the confidence to just go, this is me, like it or don't like it. And that is, quite often when people come to me as a dating coach, they're like, she's going to tell me what rules to follow and what to do with online profiles. And I do a bit of like practical side, but really it's about giving you the confidence to know who you are, what you want, and to go out and put it out there and trust that the right thing's going to come for you. And that all kind of comes from you, really, and taking that time with yourself. There's two ways of doing it, and I think you possibly did the same way as me, which was just throw yourself into loads of dates and you'll learn along the way, which is not necessarily always the healthiest. I definitely came home from some dates just sobbing my eyes out, going, it's never going to happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or you do the work beforehand and you just spend a bit of time with yourself, getting to know yourself, and then gently go through the dating.
It's interesting because I did go on dates where I was much more giving to other people and not allowing me to show up as me. I was trying to, I guess, probably almost change myself to fit other people's requirements. But one thing that I did, I have mantras every year and goals and things like that. And in that year prior to meeting my other half, my mantra was me first, then make it happen. And that was relating to a number of things, not just necessarily a relationship. But I decided enough. I guess I paused dating for a bit and I just focused on me. I focused on my health, well-being, energy, and my business as well. And I just decided that was it. I was going to make the best version of me and then put that into dating and then find the right person that matched that. And I guess that's exactly what I ended up doing.
So any final takeaways for people?
That's a tough question, actually. I think, if I'm honest, cycle tracking, because it's not something that a lot of people do. If you want to follow me, I do talk about tracking and how to do it. And I'm talking about things like taking your temperature every morning, which people think sounds bonkers. That's enabling you to know exactly when you're ovulating and exactly which day your period is coming. So it avoids those things of turning up for a date and then suddenly you realize your period's come. Like, that's awful, isn't it? So it takes all of that away, because you know in the first thing in the morning when you take your temperature, is my period coming today? And I can explain all of that if anyone wants to know. But things like that, looking at your cervical mucus, which also you'll see changing as you're having sex throughout the month as well. And then journaling, looking at actually how are you changing throughout the month, because I could tell you typically what it would look like, but because everyone's so different, you will have certain days where there's certain things that you have as traits every single month, things showing up. So I guess, definitely doing that tracking to be able to put all of this stuff into place. And also then, we haven't really touched on it, but as women are getting older, they're going into the perimenopause phase and the menopause phase. So these cycles become more irregular. The different behaviors can change. There's something like 48 symptoms of menopause, which some people don't even appreciate. Things like feeling like ants are crawling all over your body, for example, is not something you would think typically is a menopause symptom. You would think a hot flush is, but not necessarily that. So having an understanding of that is a whole nother probably conversation for us. But, being aware of your cycle now can really help you transition through those phases much easier. So the one thing I can recommend is tracking, because it just empowers you for all of the other stuff that we've talked about today.
I think we might have to come back for a chat about perimenopause and menopause, actually. Let's put that on our list. Where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram at the HCO Coach. It used to be the Hormonal Cycle Optimisation Coach, but it's a blooming mouthful, isn't it? And it's really hard to type. So just Instagram is just the HCO Coach. My website is thehcocoach.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well. If people are over there, same thing, HCO Coach. That's where I am, everywhere.
I'll add all the links down below as well.
Perfect.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It was a really great chat.
Thank you.
See you soon.
And good luck to everyone out there trying to find their perfect match.
Yeah, they do exist, and just stick with it.
They really do.
Both of us are testament, both Tinder babies as well.
Tinder babies, yeah.
3 of them between us.
Love it.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everyone.